Do you know what? Just when I thought all the jobs in the garden were done and I could go off fishing, wrong. Stretch back in the little bit of sunshine we do get in England. Oh, stretch back, look up, and across the top, what do I see on the fascia of the house? Cracks everywhere. Now listen, you're always going to get with older buildings cracks inside what's called the render. That's the concrete mix that covers as really a sort of protection for the building underneath, which could be brick if it's very old, it could be what we call breeze blocks, it could be different block works that you use, and I'm talking of the UK here because a lot of places all around the world actually do use wood. But when it cracks, it's normally like a hairline crack that you can cover with paint, with an exterior masonry paint, and it's got some form of elasticity in it for allowing for hot and cold. But once you get a hairline crack in that masonry, the outside render, then you're going to get problems because moisture gets in there, and in a country like the UK where the temperatures are up and down, you're going to get problems with expansion joints cracking. Now I made a big mistake last year, big mistake. Yeah, it's up there. What I did with the crack was, I just got the edge of a knife and I just chiseled out the very fine cracks. I thought, oh, I'm going to get this solved in one, nice, quick and easy. So I used just like a silicone, because I thought, this is clever, Graham, because the different types of silicone you can get, loads of different types of silicone, have different expansions, you know, they can move. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I want, is I want something that can move with the heat and the cold that we get in the UK. But for some reason, it didn't work. So, what you're going to do is you're going to cut that crack out, and if you cut it out deep enough, you can render it with concrete, but underneath is invariably what's going to happen is the water, the moisture gets behind that crack. And you can get it, if you tap it, it sounds sort of hollow. If it sounds hollow, there's a good chance the whole of the render is going to fall off the outside. Big problems, big bucks getting it done. This is a short fix, trying to put that deadly day off when I have to part with some big greenbacks. For a few more years, I might be safe, and this is what I do. So the general idea is to get that peeling, and here you can see how the actual paint, the outside proper masonry paint, does in fact have some form of sort of elasticity. It's just not like normal paint. You will pay extra for it, certainly, but you can see the way it's curled up here, that it's still sort of almost rubberized. It's very, very sort of flexible there, but you've got to clear it away from the edge, and that reveals the hairline crack beneath. Now the water will get right inside that crack there. That's where it soaks up, and that's where the water's going to pull your render off the wall. So just take care up, ladders. People do not bounce. They use the term bouncing baby. You never hear the term bouncing grandfather, do you? And I'm not even a grandfather yet, but I do not want to bounce. Okay, now you can try and chisel them out, but I don't want to be banging with a hammer and a cold chisel, setting up a vibration that might make that render fall off if it is hollow behind, because it might stay up there for years. And that's what I hope this will solve and make it stay up there for years. So I'm just using a cordless drill, but I'm using, rather than a grinder, which again sets up vibration, a very worn wire brush, because it's very narrow. And I just want enough to cut away the surplus paint and the surplus powdered render in order for me to get the filler. I'm going to use some fine filler into that crack, rather than a sort of silicone that might move too much. That's what I feel my problem was. So make sure you use the correct brand. Make sure you use eye protection. I have to, because I can't see anything without glasses anyway. You can put a dust mask on, should you so wish. I do put earphones on. They're not earphones, Graham, they're shotgun defenders, I think, for shooting, but they're very, very good. They gently work the wheel down the crack, down the line, until you open it up. So what I'm just doing is I'm running it down along where the cracks were, the fine cracks, and when you start to break it up, you will see the main cracks underneath will open up. There we go, just there, and that's what I want to fill out. I don't go too deep, and then I'll just smooth off the sides here, because it might be slightly curved up, and when I get my spatula to smooth the filler across there, it gives me a nice smooth surface rather than, you know, an edge to it. So once you've cut out a decent sized groove there, you've actually gone through the top of the render, you've gone through the surface of the render, and if it's not so deep, you can just taper that and make a little channel into which you're going to put the filler in there. And anything deeper you are going to need possibly, you know, to get it right back to the base of the original block work. So take care up those ladders, folks. You do not bounce very well when you are older. Well, I've ground out all the cracks up there, as you can see. I've cleaned them right out there so I can get some filler in, and that's what you want to do. The paint will fill the little tiny hair cracks, but you've got to cut out enough to get this filler in. So don't use what I use, an expanding one. Even though it says it's waterproof, it doesn't work. You want a proper, and I'm not mentioning the make, they don't do me any favours, why should I do them any favours? But it is it's a special masonry filler that is crack proof and it's waterproof and it dries in 1 hour. So when you fill these out, use something. I'm just going to use a paint strip in one here because it's got a nice even flat blade. Spread it into the cracks. You might want to finish on a downward stroke of the crack like this, so you don't pull a ridge. If it's a vertical crack, every time you come across like that, you'll find you get little track lines. If you can finish it on a vertical stroke, then you can lightly sand it off, and you should be able to blend it in with the existing concrete, the render on the outside. Let's take a go at it. So start by pushing the filler in. You're going to have to sort of force it in there. What you don't want is just to put it in there loosely, and then you get a sort of air bubble behind it. You've got to push that filler in enough to expel the air out underneath. So you can start working your way, pushing it in, cramming it right in as tight as you can get it, and try and finish on a little bit of a downward stroke. I just find it's a little bit easier when you come to sand it all off later, when it's actually turned into the dry material. Give it time to set, and then you're ready for the next stage. And with all those cracks having had an hour in the sunshine or more, they've dried off. Now's the time, just sand down the edges. You can get different grades of sandpaper. I really wouldn't use coarse on this stuff because you want to grade it down slowly. Use a fine grit sandpaper, or sometimes you can get these modern mesh, sanding, whatever, mats, I suppose you call it, a sanding mat. Little squares. Harder you push, the more you cut, the lighter you dust it with, the finer you'll get. I'm just going to dust off the edges of those cracks, and you know what? We're ready for painting. When you've rubbed it down, get it down nice and smooth, and try and blend the edges if you can, sort of get it toned in there. And obviously the paint will add a little bit to the edges. You can always put it on a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner, but get that surplus off. Otherwise you're going to be able to see it and it will annoy you. And if you're going up a ladder to paint, don't forget, ladders are really, really one of those things that most accidents occur from. And you may be tired already from going up and down, drilling it out, grinding it out, filling it in and sanding. So don't lug a huge big paint pot. Why not put it into a lightweight plastic tub, pour in just a bit, the amount you think you're going to need just for covering those fillers. Make sure you've got the right size brush that's going to go inside there. Very easily to get a brush that's too big for the pot. Then here's my tip, totally awesome tip. Get yourself a coat hanger wire, twist it up double, put a little hook in one end, a little hook reversed on the opposite side on the other, and you have your own paint pot hanger there. You don't even have to balance on the ladder, paint with one hand and hold the pot. You've got it there, just hook it onto the rung of the ladder in front of you, not in front of where you're stepping, on the inside. Make life easy. When you do your painting, you generally find, or even although you're going to be using the same colour paint, you probably will find it's going to stand out too much. You might end up doing a whole patch of wall so that you don't get two different types of colour. Well, you've got to admit that does look better, and that could just save that render falling off. It might last me 2 or 3 years more, and that's all I can ask for. I can now go fishing, or can I? Only another 475,000 square feet to go. But thanks for watching. Totally awesome DIY tips. Hope there's some help for you. Hope it gives you some more free time to enjoy whatever hobby you have. And let's hope it's fishing. Back up the ladder.